Thanks for tuning in to A Better World. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo, and today we're going to be talking about the fight against global poverty. Now, I want to start off with a couple statistics that I found from American Enterprise Institute, or better known as AEI. And what they found in this survey that was conducted not too long ago, a few years ago, I believe, somewhere around 2011 or so, maybe 2013. Anyway, it found that 67% of Americans believe that poverty across the world is on the rise. Now, 68% of Americans believe that poverty cannot be eradicated. And an astonishing 84% have no clue what's going on for the fight against poverty. This to me was extremely disheartening because we have made tremendous strides in this realm in particular. Hence why we're doing an episode on this. Because I think it's very important to cover this stuff and show how far we've come, especially in the realm of poverty when it's estimated that Homo sapiens, us, have been around for about 200, 300,000 years, and most of that time, probably well over 95% of that time, majority of us lived in extreme poverty. So I guess it's understandable to believe that it's on the rise or that it cannot be eradicated since most of our existence was spent in complete poverty for majority of us. But there's something beautiful going on right now. In the UN, it's actually been going on since 1990. And the UN started an initiative to half global poverty, extreme poverty, by 2015. So they wanted to do this within 25 years. And they actually achieved this goal, I believe, within 20 years. And so by 2010, if I'm not mistaken, the goal was already met. So that is astonishing that in a short amount of time, once we put our minds to something, we're able to accomplish it. That's what that goes to show. Now, we still have some work to do because there's still about 638 million people who live in extreme poverty. Now, if you don't know what constitutes as extreme poverty, it's about living on about $1.90 a day. So imagine trying to do that. That would be very difficult to get by. How would you afford anything? I mean, you really couldn't. You couldn't afford to live anywhere. You would be homeless. I mean, that's a horrible way to live. And a lot of people, millions of people, are still living that way. But on the bright side, something great that's happening at the same time is that 250,000 people every day are being lifted from extreme poverty. So that's 250,000 people being lifted from extreme poverty every day. So that equals out to about a little over 91 million people a year are being risen out of extreme poverty. So that's awesome. But the sad thing is, really sad thing is that over half of our country believes that poverty is on the rise, when actually we're eliminating it at an exponential rate right now. And it is really, really cool, and it's really awesome, and it's just really, really sad that people don't know this and that this isn't widespread information. But anyway, now that we've had the goal to half it and we've met that, now we have a goal to end it, to end poverty. Not just half it, not bring it down to a quarter. No, to completely eradicate poverty, which 68% of Americans don't believe is possible, by 2030. So, very soon, within our lifetimes, we will probably see this happen. Already within most of our lifetimes, we've seen the global extreme poverty level be cut in half. Within 20 years, once we made that our goal. That's incredible. Now, just to put this in perspective, in 1999, 9 years after this initiative started, so in 1999, we had 22% of the world was living in extreme poverty. But to the current study, which I believe was either in 2011, 2013, they found that it dropped to right around 10 to 11%. So we halved it in less than 10 years, from 22% to 11 to about 10%. So that's pretty incredible right there as well. Now, there's also something that's very promising, at least to me, is blockchain technology. I believe that this will be the way that we eradicate poverty. This is my personal opinion. This is my research and my knowledge of blockchain technology, and I believe it is a very valid opinion, because if you don't know the technology already, I'll explain it to you, but it has the potential to do very, very great things and disrupt a lot of well-established institutions, whether that be government or business. So, blockchain technology is essentially a decentralized way of making financial transactions or proof of property or other assets like that. Now, what I mean by decentralized financial services is it means that there's no need for a bank. Everything will be done right off of your computer, your network. And so on that network, there are ledgers. So I'm just keeping it very simple because this is a very complicated technology, but to put it in simpler terms, basically what it does is once you make a transaction on the blockchain, which is just a distributed network, so there's not one location where all the transactions are kept like you would have as a bank or something like that. So that way the chances of it being hacked or manipulated are very, very low and pretty much impossible. Not entirely. Obviously, there's still like a sliver of a chance of that happening, but it's very unlikely of it occurring. And the reason for that is because your ledgers, which essentially are receipts of all your transactions, are open to the public. So everybody can see where the money's going. Now they can't see who's spending it, but they can just see a transaction has occurred for this product. And there are people working to confirm these ledgers to make sure that they are legitimate purchases and transactions that are occurring. So this is something that will help people in developing economies if this is implemented, which there are talks of it being implemented. Actually, there's a startup called Everex that is part of their main goal is to make it so across the world we have more financial inclusion. So this would essentially allow for people to have access to financial services such as banks, so to speak, without actually having a bank. And that's awesome because this will help out tremendously because there are about 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion adults that have no bank. But blockchain technology can change that. Not only that, but it can also help end corruption in these developing economies as well, or even these third world countries where corruption is run rampant because there's no real structure there. They're either run by terrorist groups, gangs, whatever. People are corrupt at the top of these countries. And this will help eliminate that. And the reason it will help eliminate that is because of the transparency that it provides. So, for instance, things like land grabbing, stealing people's lands and taking it, and manipulating and falsifying documents to say that it's yours will no longer occur or will dwindle to pretty much nothing. I mean, it'll essentially be extinct if this technology is implemented. So not only will it help people get access to financial services, but it'll also help people maintain their property in really corrupt areas. So that's a beautiful thing right there. That is awesome. And actually, there are a couple countries that are using this technology right now in trials. Now, there haven't been much there hasn't been much information on the results of it, but they are going to use it. So Sweden is one country. They're going to use it for land registries, so essentially just to do proof of ownership of property. And in Japan, they're going to use it as well for government contracts. Now, we can go into the different kind of cryptocurrencies and their purposes in another episode and how they can be very beneficial. And they all use this blockchain technology, but the government contracts is another thing. Contracting is another thing you can do on this blockchain because of the ledgers. It allows everything to be public information. Now, once again, I do want to reiterate that your name isn't on there or anything like that. You do have a code that is yours, uniquely yours, but it is not your name. So people won't know who are making these transactions, but the people who work behind the scenes to make sure that the system's running properly will be able to confirm it on the blockchain, so that way there are no discrepancies and if no room for corruption, because there isn't just one server to attack. It is spread across the whole network. And we already have evidence that this is working in Afghanistan. Now, the country itself isn't using it, but there is a young female entrepreneur. I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name, but it looks like Raya Mabu. Now, what she does is she employs females and pays them in Bitcoin. If you don't know what Bitcoin is, it's a cryptocurrency that runs off of the blockchain. Now, the reason this is done is because 20% of women in developing economies, less than 20% of women in developing economies don't have a bank account. And those who do really don't have a bank account because the bank account is run by their male relatives. So any money that a female makes in Afghanistan, essentially, if they have access to a bank account, isn't even their money. So they're just working to pay for their male relatives' wants and needs, whatever, and they're doing nothing really. But because Roya Mabu is implementing the blockchain technology into her business and paying her female employees with Bitcoin, it is allowing for them to actually save up money without needing a bank and without their male counterparts knowing that they have this money. So even in one instance, this is something that right here, what I'm about to tell you, is something that's amazing and truly encouraging for this technology, because it goes to show that it can help people not only lift out of poverty, but just get out of terrible situations, even if they're not in poverty, but they're just in a really bad spot. So there was this report that one of her employees, who was married to an abusive husband, has been able to secretly save some money because of the Bitcoin. She's getting paid in Bitcoin, so he has no way to get access to it, nor know about it. And she can go secretly file for a divorce and get away from him. Whereas before, without this technology, that wouldn't be possible. So that is awesome right there. The fact that we have technology nowadays that will help save lives, help bring people out of poverty, because a lot of the reasons people are in poverty is because they don't have access to financial services such as banks. And so because of that, they don't have a way to keep their money safe. If you're living in a bad area and you're trying to save money, you're probably susceptible to break-ins and so on and so forth, and thugs on the streets, and you get the picture, right? It's probably not the best place if you don't have access to a bank account to be living in the first place. But this will allow us to have access to those kind of financial services. That way we can start saving and even lift more people out of poverty. So point being, the reason I'm sharing this information of the blockchain is because this, if it turns out to work really well on a countrywide scale in countries like Sweden and Japan, and show promising results, which I'm confident it will, because it's already shown promising results in little areas in Afghanistan. And so if that does show positive results, then I don't see why we wouldn't be able to integrate that into our fight against poverty. Now, this is something that I believe everybody should be aware about, is because to me, it is very depressing that half of our country believes that poverty is on the rise, when really we have technology like never before to help us eliminate it. And over half the country doesn't believe that we can eradicate it when we have the freaking technology right in front of our fucking faces, and we don't even realize it. And we don't realize it because what gets played all the time is the negative stuff, is the things that will keep your attention, which is understandable. I get it. I completely empathize with what the media is doing, simply because we pay attention to negative news more because it's an evolutionary process. From what I understand, my limited knowledge on evolutionary biology and evolution entirely, and biology entirely, is that we pay attention to the negative things more because they pose a risk to us, whereas opposed to the positive things, there's not really a risk there, and there's just a lot of reward, whatever. But with the negative things, we pay more attention to because they can be potentially harmful to us. So obviously we're going to keep those in our mind's eye a lot better than the positive things. And so that's why they'll catch our attention more, hence why it is shown all over the media more, and you don't really see these things, even though we are doing astonishing things. So that's what I wanted to cover in today's episode, is just the fact that we are on our way to eliminating poverty entirely, and it's very, very little coverage is being done on this. We have a long way to go, but we are making tremendous strides. We've already halved it, and by 2030, if we can do what we did from 1990 to 2015, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do that in 2030. It's just a few years away. So hopefully, I'm very confident that we will, in our lifetime, see the eradication of poverty. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys got something out of this. And like always, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, like, comment, leave some feedback, whether it's good or bad. And let me know if there's a topic in particular that you would like me to touch on. If you know that there's been some improvement, but you haven't heard anybody discuss it really, I'd be more than happy to do that, or at least do some research on it. So thank you guys, and have a great day.